Hello and welcome to the Wonder Women series of the Maker Mom podcast. My name is Katie Freeman and I am your host. Every week I bring you 2 interviews of female and non-binary makers of all kinds, some of them parents and some of them not. Today's Wonder Women series guest is Rachel of Moody Makes on Instagram. So besides being a woodworker, Rachel is also a teacher and she is working on getting her doctorate degree currently. Before we hop on in to the interview with Rachel, I want to give a big shout out and thanks to the patrons over on Patreon. So thank you so much, Kevin, Lefty's Woodshop, Christy, Twisted Twine, Christina B, Jeremy Spees, Sammy, Go Sammy Lee, Lauren, Rasp File Designs, Sven, Dwarf Size Workshop, Rachel, Moody Makes, Bonnie, toolmomstore.com, Laura, Oakley Soap Company, Mary Lou, Made by Mary Lou, Amy, Bison Valley Carving, Dan and Kelly Reclaim Living Store, Brandy, Studio Obey, Kathy, One Girl and Her Tools, Ellen, Little Bear Furniture, and Ethan Carter Designs. Thank you all so very much for your ongoing continued support, helping me to produce 2 episodes a week, every week. And with no further ado, here is Rachel of Moody Makes. Well, as you know, I always have guests start by introducing themselves. So I'm going to let you do that when you are ready.
Oh, I actually forgot about that part. Okay. I didn't plan for that. So I am Rachel Moody. I live in Eastern Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. I am a woodworker, I guess. And I make stuff in my little small shop, in my little 1-car garage that's that I've been working on for almost 2 years now, just to make the actual structure and then make it organized and workable. And now I've started to transition to other types of projects, and eventually I'll get to furniture. That's sort of where I'm at. I don't know what else you want to know.
Well, that's a good starting place.
Okay.
I was going to ask, so like you said, 1-car garage, is that like, do you own your home or are you renting and have to?
So we live in a 3-family home and of 3 condos, and we're on the first floor. And there's like a detached 3-car garage, has 3 bays, and we have one of the bays. And we own condos. And we're lucky the other 2 bays are like attached to each other. But ours, for some reason, has a wall that separates it from the other 2 already. It already had a wall, so I could sort of make it my own space.
That is really nice, because that would definitely suck to have to like have it open and share.
With my neighbors. Totally.
Especially if they're not keen on getting sawdust all over their car.
Exactly. No, but I've insulated it, spent a while insulating it and putting up walls and stuff. And so the noise is kept pretty low. So I don't think I've bothered them too much yet.
Well, that's good. All right. So I want to know, what's the story of Rachel?
My story? Oh, God. I don't know. Sort of like how I got to the type of making or woodworking that I do, or
just in general, like how'd you get to be the person you are where you are today? There you go. Is that that narrows it down for you, right?
Um, I don't know. Well, I thought you were gonna ask me about my childhood, so I'm gonna start with childhood.
Perfect.
I grew up in California in like a small rural town of about 1,000 people. It's about an hour from Silicon Valley in San Francisco. It's actually a place where it's on the coast, and it's a place where lots of folks like drive over the mountain from Silicon Valley for the weekend and stuff because it's pretty.
Is it Russian River area?
No, that's I think north of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm south of San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah, the other direction. But yeah, I grew up there. My mom also grew up in my town, and is very fond of it, which is why she still wanted to stay. And grew up with like on 8 acres of land, although we didn't have a farm or anything. My mom had chickens at one point, but that's about it. And I don't know, it was outside a lot, and did a lot of sports, and like was pretty creative kid, and finding things to do in such a small place where there was not a lot going on. Like um, my closest friend, like distance wise, was an hour walk. So for some reason, I don't know why my parents let me walk to my friend's house. But yeah, so, always had to find things to do. Whether it was like building skate ramps, or like my friend lived at the top of a mountain, and we like would take those little like children's plastic picnic benches and like
Mm-hmm.
flip it upside down and duct tape it to a skateboard and like ride down the mountain. And yeah, again, I don't know why we were allowed to do that, but it didn't have helicopter parents, I think is what I'm getting at. We just sort of were left to our own devices. Yeah, so I think that played a big part in sort of developing like a sort of like a rich inner life and a sense of creativity and experimenting with things. And yeah, then in terms of, well, I don't know, I don't really know what direction you want me to go in with who I
Well,
am
you
or
could,
how I got
yeah,
into
you
this. Yeah.
can, yeah. Where'd you go? I guess past that, past like high school and stuff.
Um, I past high school. I went to well, actually for high school, I didn't go to school in my hometown. I went to school in Silicon Valley, and that was, so drove an hour there each day, and that was a bit of a culture shock. But from there, ended up going to college on the East Coast. My dad is from the East Coast, and we have some family out here, and so I ended up going out to school near Boston. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduated. I thought education, but I think I was sort of swept up in like, why did we pay all this money for me to be a teacher? Just sad, but right, it's true. And I went back home, moved back to my hometown, and lived with my mom. And I started working at a nonprofit, like a community resource center in my hometown. And that's, and this was like sort of around the time of like when the market crashed, like with the recession. And so I was happy to get a job, but I was interested in it. It was education related. And from there, I worked with a lot of folk. Like I did some adult education teaching. I worked with some high school students on getting into college. I realized, what I really wanted to do was get back into education. And so then I finally did go to do a teaching program out there. Then when it came time to be a teacher, I ended up moving back east to Boston. So that's how I ended up back out here for no good reason other than I think I want to get away again, and be somewhere else. Like I did enjoy being home for a couple of years, but I think sort of the smallness of it was starting to get to me again, sort of overwhelming. Yeah.
What was tell me a little bit more, like what was like the culture of your kind of hometown like?
I don't know. It's I mean, it's Northern California. It's like fairly liberal. I think there's a mix of folks. It's like my town specifically, because it's agricultural, has a lot of migrant farm workers and their families. So it's like majority Mexican. And like, I don't remember percentages now, but and part of my work at the nonprofit was working with those families, and I studied abroad for a year in Mexico in college, so I learned Spanish, and so that was coming back to work in my community and learning Spanish. I learned a lot more about my community that I didn't know growing up because of language barriers and other sort of inadvertent segregation. And yeah, so I don't know if there's like one culture of my hometown. I think for as small it is, it's pretty complex. But there definitely is a sense of like folks wanting to get out. I think that's pretty small, or pretty common with small towns. And I think like my whiteness and economic mobility absolutely helped me leave, right? Not to say that's true for everyone. Like my brothers still live in the area. They decided not to leave, but like I wanted to and I could. So,
right.
Yeah. I do think it was difficult to be any different than people had known you to be growing up, because everybody knows each other. So I think like being queer there was pretty difficult. Even though people probably knew that about me for a long time anyways, yeah.
Do you feel like, I mean, I guess I don't know, your story around discovery of self in regards to that, because everybody's story is so different and unique. But do you feel like the smallness of where you were, did it make it easier or harder to connect with that part of yourself growing up?
I mean, I think it made it more difficult. I didn't know any gay people. And so it was just like whoever I saw on TV, right? And there weren't a lot of people on TV in, the 90s and even early 2000s. There was like Will and Grace,
Yeah.
And Ellen.
Yeah.
But so I think that for sure made it harder. Although there wasn't as much for sure like overt stuff that was discriminatory or things like that as there is in other parts of the country for sure, or even other parts of California, to be honest. But
right. Hi makers, today's episode is brought to you by toolmomstore.com. Tool Mom and Company is for all ages, genders. They have what you need for your one-stop tool-related merchandise of gifts and clothing. The products are fun, fashionable, one of a kind. In fact, I have two of the mugs. One has a circular saw with flames coming off of it and says "Go Girl." Another one has the definition of a tool chick. Both of them are super awesome, and I have coffee out of them almost every morning. So check out toolmomstore.com or find them on Instagram at toolmombonnie. You can receive an extra 20% off at checkout by using the code MAKERMOM. California is a mighty big state. And I don't think people, me being one of them, like growing up in the Midwest, and basically all I really knew about California was San Francisco and the idea that it was like a haven or like supposed to be like utopia for people like me. And so like that, and then when I moved to California and where we lived, it was, I guess, eye-opening to realize that outside of like the major cities, like California is predominantly conservative, and and you have to be careful based on where you live.
For sure, yeah. I remember you saying you were near San Diego or something, which is a pretty conservative area, actually.
We lived in northern San Diego County, where Camp Pendleton is and stuff. So military base presence makes it difficult, to say the least. But yeah, it was it's just interesting to hear, I guess the experience of like, as a child, that was like what I looked to be like, oh, if I move there, like I can be okay. And like how much of a fairy tale, I guess that
was. True. Yeah. I don't know. My town was, again, it's hard to generalize. I think, again, I didn't really see anyone out in my town. Although I'm sure there were people, I didn't know them or didn't recognize them. And I mean, there were like this, like, small contingent of, I don't know, farmer bros. I don't know if you'd call them. I mean, to be honest, that like, like that was like my older brother's age and stuff, and like absolutely would just yell faggot all the time and things like, so it's like that was there, even if it wasn't like as part of the whole culture of the place. I don't know. I think, well, I don't know what it would have been like if I had stayed in that area for my high school. My parents got divorced, so my mom stayed in that small town, and then my dad lived like a half an hour north, in another small town, just not as small. But I don't know what it would have been like if I'd stayed in that high school. I ended up going to a Catholic high school in Silicon Valley, and so because it was Silicon Valley, it was like probably the most liberal version of a Catholic school that you could have for the early 2000s. But it was still a Catholic school, and there was a lot of, I was actually just talking to friends from high school about this the other day. There was like a lot of like silence, and like a lot of shame that I don't know what I'd call it, like silence-induced shame, I guess, I suppose. Where it's like, we value you as a whole person. We want you to develop as a whole person. Just don't talk about that one part of you, please. Like, and it's fine if you're that way, but just don't tell anyone. Or like, I was lucky that I had a couple teachers that were just incredible, and like helped me come out in high school. But it was difficult, and it not just for me, for everyone during that time and before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. We're close in age, and let's just say it's that time period was not what it is today. Not to say that today is perfect by any means, but it just was different.
Yeah. It is surprising. It is surprising how much has changed in the last 15 years or 20
Mm-hmm.
years for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yep. Yep. Totally get it. So, why go into education?
Um, I mean, I think I was lucky that I had always felt safe in school.
Mm-hmm.
I always did well in school. I think uh, I, from really young, enjoyed sort of the creative aspects of thinking about what it would be like to teach things, or and learning new things, and sort of nerdily planning around like to teach things in the fake school and stuff.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I think my priorities or rationale changed to be more like, I guess, more in line with sort of social justice aims, and
Mm-hmm.
thinking about ways to improve the world and people's lives and stuff. I think did I enter with like a bit of a savior mentality? Probably, to be honest. But I think many people do. um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then once you learn, right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
um, it's uh, listening to a podcast the other day about, oh, and I can't think of his name right now. He does uncomfortable conversations with a black man. I can't think of his name. Anyways, uh, he was talking about, like, white people don't shouldn't feeling guilty about your white privilege does nobody any good.
Mm,
Just acknowledge that you have that privilege and then go do something with it, right?
mhm.
So but that there's a fine line, I think, of between the idea of, like you said, like going in as a savior versus going into, I think of it more as like work with,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
just open the door but don't feel like to do for.
Yep.
um and personally, sometimes I have to actually stop and ask myself that question, like, am I doing this to do for somebody, or am I trying to just open that door and let them do for
Yeah.
themselves?
And yeah, and offer your skill set.
Right.
But yeah, but open the door, uplift, but not control. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, like, I mean, you talked about, you went back home and you worked in nonprofit and got to work with some of those uh, migrant families
Mhm.
in your hometown. Is that Do you feel like that was, like, invaluable in the sense of, like, learning some of that lesson about, like,
Yeah, I think this is what I wrote my application, like my essay, my application to grad school the first time, was I, at that point, was like working with some, like, so I had graduated college. I was working with high school students, so like we were not that far apart in age, and
mhm,
so like I recognized some of them. I knew some of them. They were some like younger siblings of some other kids that I've grown up with. But working with them on college application stuff, I I do think it was sort of like a light bulb moment around, like, like looking at transcripts, for example, and being like, okay, let's figure out, like, you want to go to college, great. Let's figure out where you can apply. Um, because at the time the school didn't have like a full-time college counselor. So like, we were just trying to help in any way we could. And I was just out of college, very familiar with the process, obviously. And so we'd be sitting down these meetings with these kids and looking at transcripts and be like, okay, like in California, it is, or what definitely was, I don't know if it still is, called the A to G requirements, like the different types of classes and the number of years that you have to have of those classes in order to even qualify to apply, right? And so we'd be filling out the chart and get to the end of it and be like, well, you know, you didn't take Algebra 2 and you didn't take 4 years of English or whatever, right? Like you were put in this remedial track or something. So like your 4 years of English don't actually count as English credits. So like, I'm sorry, you can't even apply to a 4-year college. And just having those conversations like over and over again was eye-opening, I think. And so, yeah, not that everybody needs to go to a 4-year college. Right. I'm just saying like that, you know.
What did you feel like having those conversations?
I mean, I'm trying to think in my like 22-year-old brain. But I think I you know, I just thought it, like, sensed the injustice of it all, you know, like I got super self-righteous about it, I think. And was like, let's transform everything. And, you know, I think I'm a little more like measured and nuanced in sort of my understanding of school systems and education now. But at the time, yeah, it was awful. I felt terrible for them. And I was like, and this, you know, this wouldn't have happened to me. And it's not right. So.
Yeah, we recently trying to kind of broaden broaden what my kids see or interact with via books recently, right? Trying to like thoughtfully trying to find books that contain stories that are not just showing white families, and so showing stories of like black and brown families, including like historical things. And I didn't even know this existed about, and I'm probably going to totally mess up the facts, but I think it was in the 50s or 60s, where like a Mexican family who had, you know, they legally did immigrate to the US, and ended up, you know, they owned their own farm. And when they went to send their children to school, they were told they had to go to the Mexican school. Like they weren't allowed to just go to the public school that was like just down the street from them, even though there was no like law about this, but they had created totally separate schools. And this book is really great about just sharing like what that school was like and what the experience was like. And they took it to the Supreme Court and won the case for there to be full, you know, integration, basically. But I just like what stuck out the most, I guess what broke my heart the most, and then having a conversation like with my kids as we're reading it, is talking about signs that they would see like just in restaurants and stuff that said no dogs, no Mexicans. And like just the thought of like, wow, you know, I guess I just didn't realize how uneducated I was about the history there, especially in California, given that California, at least Southern California, used to be part of Mexico.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just, it's mind boggling, I guess, at times. And that those inequalities unfortunately still exist, even though that Supreme Court case was, you know, 70
Yeah.
years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah. I think it's trickier now because it's not overt, right? And it's like it's more difficult to point out the bad actors, right? And then I think that's probably what I meant by like a more nuanced understanding of it now, that it's like it's a sort of collection of mentalities or ideologies combined with like school policies, combined with state policies and admissions requirements,
Yeah.
and individual people's actions, interpersonal actions, institutional actions that
Yeah.
like all sort of come together to create, the inequities that we see today. So it's like it's I think that makes it more difficult for people to understand too, which is probably why it's so hard to have like the national conversation about these things right now, right? Yeah.
I think that's why it's valuable though, to learn about the history and then be able to connect the dots to like how it looks today.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and that to your point, like we might have grown up inadvertently, like helping to add to that system of inequality, but we didn't even know it. And like if you asked us, we'd all probably, a lot of us would be like, but I'm not racist or I'm not whatever. And that may be the case, but we're still participating in a system that is. And so until you realize and understand that, then changes can't be made.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey friends, I wanted to tell you about an awesome brand I discovered that you might love as well. Have you ever spent a ton of money on clothing that was supposed to be high performance, only for it to end up at the back of your closet because it just doesn't fit right? I personally hate when this happens. I get excited about a new pair of work boots and then I'm disappointed to find out they just weren't designed for me. Discovering Athena Outfitters was a game changer for me. Athena Outfitters is a quality workwear brand for hardworking women. All of their items are handpicked to meet the needs of women in the trades, not just sized down versions of items designed for men. They've got great workwear essentials like comfortable, soft, and safety toe boots, and options for my active lifestyle when I'm off the clock as well. Shopping with Athena Outfitters saves me time and energy because I always know I'm getting a high quality product that also looks and feels great. Next time you're looking for gear with grit, check out AthenaOutfitters.com. That is ATHENA Outfitters.com, and use special code at checkout MM15 to get a 15% discount because you listen to the Maker Mom podcast.
And I think like in the work that I so now I teach pre-service teachers.
What's that mean? You're gonna have to explain what that means.
Well, not all pre-service teachers, but mainly like student teachers or like undergrads who are in programs to become teachers or just thinking about teaching. All sort of kind of follow under that umbrella, pre-service. And yeah, so that's part of what I strive to do with them. I'm not sure if I always accomplish the goals that I set out, but
are you teaching at like a college then?
Yeah, I'm trying to finish my PhD and I teach at the institution where I go to school and then at another one that's nearby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, so you're near Boston.
Yeah.
So near a big city.
Yeah.
So what's the makeup like of the students coming through your program?
Oh, the undergraduate programs?
Yeah.
Both, I mean, both of the institutions are majority white. One is a Catholic institution. Yay. And yeah.
Are you a glutton for punishment?
Yeah, right. No, it's like, we needed to stay in Boston, and so I had what I had to apply to. But yeah. So I forgot what your question was now. What's the makeup of the
What's
students?
the makeup? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like 80% of teachers are white. So that's, I mean, and that's slowly getting better, but well, I suppose it's not getting better for everyone. So we, like, in the last 30 years, there have been more Asian and Latinx educators. Like that, those percentages have been going up, but that has not been true for Black educators and Native American educators. So other than that, like, but the institutions I'm in are, yeah, majority white. One of the classes I'm teaching right now actually is like got maybe like a quarter Latinx students, which is very exciting. So.
Yeah. So I suppose, we're like getting close to halfway through. I suppose I should ask where woodworking comes into all of this.
Right? At some point.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like what I understand of your story is it's somewhat new of an endeavor for you to be getting into. So just, yeah, what's the why, the how, the what behind getting into it?
I think like I've always been sort of creative and interested in building stuff. I just think I wasn't like always given the opportunities. Like, my older brother is a, what do you call it? Contractor, actually. And he's been doing that full time since he was 16. And so at some point prior to that in childhood, he had some experiences that let him know that he liked that. And we grew up in the same house, and for some reason that was not the case for me. And it's not like my parents like didn't want me to do it. I mean, there was one situation I can remember where like my brother was building one of those cars, derby cars for Boy Scouts. And I really wanted to do it. But it was sort of a conversation around like, Rachel, you're not allowed to join the Boy Scouts. You're not allowed to do that, even though like most of my friends were boys. And like I did everything with them, and I until middle school, like I was like, they had to force me out of Little League. I'll just say that, right? Like I did. I stayed as long as I could in what could remain co-ed activities. But yeah, I don't know. I think I expressed interest at different times, and it just wasn't the opportunities were not presented to me in the same way that they were to my brothers. And I think that that's like important for folks to understand, and like parents especially, I suppose, that like it's not like just like active discouragement that prevents different types of people from getting into different hobbies or walks of life or professions or whatever. It's that like the same assumptions are made for certain types of people based on what they would or wouldn't be interested in. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, it's the gender messaging is basically what it is. What I see it being,
Exactly. Yeah. So like, like we'd be visiting family or something, and I'd wake up and my dad and my cousins and my brothers would be gone, right? And so I'd be there with my like mom and aunt to be like, what's going on? Like, where did they go? And they had like gone off to go fishing or to go paintballing or to go do something.
Right.
And they'd get back and I'd like confront them and be like, why didn't you invite me? And might just remember like multiple times my dad being like, oh, well, I just didn't think you'd want to. I was like, do you know me at all? Like,
Right.
where have you been for my whole life?
Right.
Yeah. So
No, I mean,
I don't know. You know what I mean?
Oh, I get it. I mean, that's why I vividly, I remember, and I tell the story of like the things that were purchased for me, like for birthdays and
Mm-hmm.
Christmas and stuff like that, for the majority of definitely my young childhood, were baby dolls and Barbies, and I can't stand any of that.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand any of that then.
Yeah.
It's like I do the like obligation play with it just because it was like we're poor and so you went and spent money on this, so I feel bad. So I'll play with it just so like you feel like, whatever. But in all reality, like I had no desire like for those things. I wanted to build things. I wanted to build
Yeah.
with Legos and stuff and connects and all of that. And it took a really, really long time for like
Mm-hmm.
my family to get that. Like,
Yeah.
I think I was probably in high school before like it was ever like really like, oh, okay. But it was still, I can say to this day, uh, my mom will suggest that I need to like go buy dresses, and I'm like, really? Like, really? Like,
Yeah.
pretty sure I'm almost 40, pretty sure you're over 60. We should have this understanding by now.
Yeah.
So I think it's just it's the messaging, it's the idea of what it means to be feminine or masculine, and
Yeah.
how that, you know, plays out into everything. Everything.
Into everything. Yeah.
Everything.
I think uh I think my mom was pretty good. Like my mom was the one I could negotiate with. And, like it was more other family who I somehow yet didn't know anything about me, or like continued to treat me this way when I actively said no multiple times. Because like she had like she herself, I think, may have gotten into building and things, like if it again had been like a different time or she had more
Right.
encouragement. Like she took a drafting class, I remember, and she designed the plans for our house. So like she was always interested in that type of stuff. But yeah, we would negotiate over. I swear, like we sat down like once a year, and I'm just exaggerating, but I swear we sat down like once a year to like go through the holidays and like plan which one I would wear a dress for.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, you're saying that we have Christmas and we have Easter
Right.
and we have this other party and we have my Holy Communion, and I will only do one. So you choose, right? It was usually Easter, and it was quote unquote, for my grandma to make her happy.
Well, you know what I'm impressed with in that story, that you advocated for yourself. That you even had the gall to try to negotiate that. Perhaps if I had known you, I would have realized that was a negotiable deal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I just suffered through.
Oh, God, I hated it so much.
Yeah.
For my Holy Communion, I did give in, but I refused to buy anything, because have you seen communion dresses? Like they're awful,
Right.
like poofy and frilly, and it was just like my worst nightmare.
Right.
And so I was like, I will wear one, but you have to make it, and it cannot have any accessories on it. It can have nothing. So it was basically like a bed sheet like semi in the form of a dress that was just draped over me. And I said, fine. And I hated it the entire time, but I'm doing this for you, Mom.
That's right. I love
Yeah.
it. I absolutely love it.
I've always had, like, I just always been, I don't know. I think with some things in my life, I really do like, I don't know, probably care too much what people think, or like give other people's opinions too much weight. But
Mhm.
when it came to like what I wear, or like certain stuff related to gender from my earliest memories, it was like, no, I refuse. Which maybe made it difficult to have me around. I don't know.
No, I love that.
Woodworking.
Woodworking.
Yeah. So the first time I actually tried woodworking was in middle school. We had a shop program where like everybody had to try every elective for, I think we had trimesters at my school actually, for like a trimester. And then you basically, whatever one you liked the most, then you did for like a full year the next year or something like that. And so I did shop. I don't know what grade it was, 6th, 7th, something like that. And then I didn't do it again for many, many years. But I actually like was trying to remember how I started as an adult, and my wife had to remind me like as of this morning, because I couldn't remember the full story. But we didn't live here yet. We lived in an apartment, and we weren't married yet. And I was teaching, and I was having like particularly difficult year. I was having like really major anxiety, and it was difficult to go to school and teach every day. I was not a good place. And she was like, why don't you like try to get a hobby? You're like, you know what, I think you might enjoy doing something with your hands, and like just getting out of your head a bit. And so she knew of like an adult education center nearby that had like night classes. And she was like, I think you'd like to work with hand tools. And now looking back, like I think she had actually like found it ahead of time to give me, and she like wanted to get me out of the house, because she was like, she spent a very long time making me a Christmas present, and she like wanted me out of the house for like a couple hours
Yeah.
once a week. So I think that was actually part of her calculations. But yeah, so I ended up taking this hand tool class. How many years ago that was now? 5 or 6 years ago or something. And I liked it. I did like it, because I think I was still too intimidated to like really work with machines. So I think it was like a good starting point for me. But I also, after it, kind of like, it was literally just like, let's go through the steps and you'll end up with like a little mortise and tenon box. And that was it. And like I guess I liked it, but I was struggling to see the bigger picture. Like I didn't understand sort of like I know now, like, like the box is sort of the foundation of everything. And that's how you like test out different joints and just different designs and stuff. And like, I had no concept of like why we were making the box, or why we were making it the way it was. I also legitimately struggled with like fractions, and like, cause I'd never like tried to measure anything before. And he was like acting like we all had like, could just think in our heads in 30 seconds or something, like, so I enjoyed it, but I think I stopped after that, until we moved into this condo and like needed some furniture stuff. And some like, this is like at least 100 years old, or more, like 120 years old. And it like, there's weird nooks and crannies and nothing is square. And so we needed like weird pieces of like extra skinny or extra weirdly sized stuff for the house, that we couldn't buy. So we still have like some of my first furniture projects, like a bookcase over there in the hallway that's like only 6 inches deep or something, because that's what it needed to be. But it's like this, and there's like gaps in the drawers. It's like, yeah. But I suppose that's where it started.
Today's sponsor is Rasp and File Designs. Rasp and File was created to give new life to old things and create spaces that feel timeless, unique, and warm. Your home and business should be your sanctuary, a place of solace, and your personal piece of art. The owner and woodworker behind Rasp and File Designs is Lauren Matthews, and you can follow along and find out more information on Instagram. Just look up Rasp Filed Designs, or on the internet at rfdesigns.squarespace.com.
Then I stopped teaching and I ended up going back to graduate school again, quote unquote, for a break teaching. And I needed more income beyond my, like, the stipend that they give us. So I started working at a woodworking store nearby, like it sells tools and things. And been learning more there. I've been there like 3.5 years. And yeah, and I get a discount. So that has really what has like equipped most of my shop has been working there. And yeah, and then decided to do the garage project. And that was a conversation because I started out in our basement, and like had a miter saw down there and stuff, and it was just not a good situation because it's like shared too, right? So there's like two other bays with other people's storage, and it's like sawdust was going to be on everything by the end of this. And so that was a motivator to get me out of the basement. But also we had a negotiation where I was like, okay, like for my wife, like I'll build you, or like spruce up the area so you can have like a little workout area down here, and then I'll be outside and it'll be separate and it'll be great. So yeah. And then spent a very long time just building the shop. And now I'm finally at a point where I'm like learning, like, I think like real woodworking skills, and that will hopefully soon translate to nice-ish furniture. Because I am at the box stage right now, but but I like what I'm learning. I do virtual lessons with a woodworker named Vic Teslin. I started out doing some webinars with him and then asked if he did private instruction, and he does. But that's been great, especially during COVID. Just have like someone to chat with semi-regularly, like, and laugh with, and like talk about something you're really interested with. And yeah, I feel like I'm getting a extremely slow fine furniture education. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with extremely slow.
Yeah. So when you talked about that first class, that first box, I didn't see the spark of really like, this is what I really enjoyed doing. So how'd you go? I mean, I guess where did you get that spark during that class, or is it like what made you keep going?
Yeah, I think, no, I didn't really in the first class. I think I still felt like a lot of nervousness around like learning how to use tools and things like that. I think it really, and even after building a couple of things for the house, like, again, I liked it and I was into it, but I think just like in undertaking like the transformation of the garage just in the last couple years, that has just like given me confidence that I really didn't have before. And this sense of accomplishment that, especially in like these nebulous times of, in sort of like, not just COVID, but before that, just in academia and stuff, it's like this sense of like accomplishment and pride and like actually finishing something concrete, and and just like gaining confidence in that, like I can make something and I'm competent at this. And I love the like design aspect of of like designing the space out there, but now doing the smaller projects that I'm doing. So I don't know. I enjoy working with my hands. I suppose as sort of like a meditative thing. But that sort of takes me out of my head. But I also think like woodworking and making is like a real creative and intellectual endeavor as well. And I think it marries all of those really nicely. And I just get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I do. Yeah.
Now
But it took a while to get there,
Yeah.
because I just had such like extreme nervousness around learning to new skills and learning to use different tools and stuff.
Had you ever pursued like another type of hobby or craft working with your hands before?
No, I don't think so. Other than like, the crazy kid thing, like shenanigans. Not formally, no. I don't think. No. And at the time that I decided to do this too, like I was actively searching for some sort of adult hobby, because it wasn't going to be sports anymore. Actually, I met my wife on an adult softball league, but only did that a few years, and like that wasn't going to be my thing anymore. And so in sort of like transitioning out of sports, I needed to find something. I think this was the first one of the first things I'd started doing with my hands. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have a great story for like where exactly it came from.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely curious around like that sense of nervousness. And about confidence, because I think there's something key there, right? Like I have always had an interest in furniture or in making things, but it took me getting some classes to actually like feel confident enough to like be like, oh, I can do this on my own. Like I don't have to take classes or like, okay, so I've never used that tool before. Big deal. I'll figure it out. Like, but it took a long time to get to that point of like being confident to do that without kind of someone holding my hand along the way. And so I think there's definitely something, I don't know, around that, right? Of just like what do you think I mean, you kind of hit on it maybe with the garage shop space. Is that, I mean, what about that experience do you think helped give you confidence?
I mean, just the fact that I could do it, I suppose, and it didn't fall down, and like it's but I do remember this thought process of like, I am not I couldn't possibly be qualified to do this, right? Like I don't know how to do this. And I actually asked a colleague of mine at the woodworking store, who's this like hilarious older fellow, and I was whose name is Woody, not his real name. But anyways, I was like, Woody, I really want to do this. I was wondering if like you'd come out and check it out, and like I'm really nervous. I don't know if I actually have the skills to do this. Because for the first year I was working at that store, I still wasn't like really making much of my own stuff. I was just sort of like learning about the tools and stuff still. And he came out to look at it, and he didn't hesitate, and he was just like, yeah, you can do this. And was like, here are the 3 things you need. Like the first step was like, you could see straight through the garage. It's an old cinder. It's like 100-year-old cinder block garage. You could see straight through some of the cinder block. And he's like, you need mortar and like, you need trowel and like all this stuff. Right. And you need to patch it up. And like, here's vaguely how you do it. You can do it, go buy it and do it. And I don't know. I think I needed somebody to like give me permission to do it or to have confidence in me. Cause I don't know. I mean, I suppose, you know, like men or folks perceived as men growing up, like, I think grew up with that confidence. Like it's like from very young, they're just told that they can do these sorts of things, right? They are capable of it. And I don't think that's true for, you know, for folks perceived as women, you know, so. I
guess
don't know.
what's sticking out for me is like when you talked about your childhood and doing the crazy things of like the picnic table and the skateboard, or even just having the confidence to advocate for yourself when it came to wearing a dress or not. Like, there was that confidence there, right? I mean, a confidence to do something maybe crazy going down on a mountainside. But like, is there something specific that you feel like you needed that permission for when it came to doing something, you know, with your hands, in the sense of like the furniture or the garage space?
I don't know. I think I just had like a deep fear of ruining everything. Like the material or the tool, I would ruin it. And yeah, I don't know.
Let me ask this question.
Sure. I think I can see you thinking something, Katie.
Okay, you talked about that bookcase, and you mentioned like the gaps and the maybe the leaniness to it.
I suppose I'm a perfectionist.
In the end, does it function?
Yeah, it functions. Yeah.
Does anybody but you see those flaws?
My wife probably does, but she probably doesn't care. Yeah. But yeah.
So I mean, just this. And I realize now it may come off as I'm picking on you, but I'm not, in the sense of, I think a lot of us who make fall into that same trap, that perfectionist rap. And I don't know what I think there's 2 schools of people. There's the craftsman, and then there's like a maker. And to me, they're different. I think a craftsman focuses on, is a perfectionist and focus on the details, and that's good for what they're making, right? If you're making fine furniture, like, you want to focus on the details. Like, the beauty of fine furniture it generally is in the details and being able to like perfect like a dovetail joint or whatever, like that. There's beauty in that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like the maker can tend to be more like proof of concept.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just want to see if I can make that thing.
Yeah.
And then reach a level of like, it's good enough. It functions. It's good enough. And so it's like just 2 different, we all kind of work interrelationally together, but like there's definitely 2, I think, very much different mindsets of people depending on what they go after.
Yeah, so I think that I'm very much more on the side of the crafts person and like trying to figure out how to make things look a very particular way. And taking my time and obsessing about the details. When in all reality, like, many projects don't require that, right?
Well, or more to the point, what I've come to realize, and it took time. it took a
Mhm.
lot of time, is that generally nobody else but me can see it.
Yes.
And given enough time away from the like direct making of that project, I even can't see it all anymore.
Yeah.
Like I have a piece, I have two pieces in our home now that are 8 years old, that were more of my more official first builds.
Mhm.
And at the time, I could have walked you through every last horrible detail that I made a mistake on those pieces. And now I can't, right?
Yeah.
They've become a part of our home. They're a part of our space. They're a part of our family. And they function in the ways that they function. And I can't tell you, I mean, sure, if I studied it long enough, I'm sure it would all come back to me. But I
Yeah.
can't tell you by looking at it. And nobody else in those 8 years has ever been able to be like, well, what's that space gap right there? Like nobody's been
Mhm.
able to do that.
Yeah.
Instead, they just see that a piece as a whole, as an accomplished piece, instead of broken down into the details of how it was created.
Yeah.
Um, and so
I
it's,
think
I
that's
think it,
totally fair.
yeah, it just, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
And perhaps you're lucky enough, my almost 8 year old now, he definitely spends time pointing out those those things to me, or just things that he's like, yeah, I don't like that thing you did there with that thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't have someone like that in your life, then you're definitely golden, I think.
Yeah.
um yeah. uh all right, I will say, now I'll call time. I'll call time
Okay.
on we're at the end of our time.
All right.
But I want to let people. I want to give you a chance to let people know how they can find you and follow along with you.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram at Moody_Makes. That's really the only place that I do stuff. So that's where you should find me.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thanks for chatting with me today, Rachel.
Yeah. I appreciate it. This is really fun.
Yeah.
I think I calmed down a bit. I wasn't as nervous.
All right, again, that was Rachel of Moody Makes, and I will include how you can follow along with her in the description for today's episode. So you can find that on whatever podcast app you're listening to this on, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can find it down in the description below. Head on over to Patreon and check out about joining the tribe over there. It really is meant to be a community, and so any tier level that you join up at, you get access to additional content. You could get mugs, t-shirts, stickers, depending on what tier level you choose, or all of the above. Also, if you like today's episode or any of the past episodes, please remember to hit that subscribe, like, and comment. Head on over to iTunes, leave a 5-star review. All of that helps the podcast gain more viewership / listenership, if that's a word. Not sure if that's a word. When I'm not making podcasts, you can find me designing and making furniture and other home decor over at freemanfurnishings.com and at Freeman Furnishings pretty much across all the social media. I am active daily on TikTok and Instagram, though, so that's where you can go to see what project I'm currently working on and what my current dance moves are. So go check that out at Freeman Furnishings. Let me know you found me through the podcast. I love hearing that. All right, it's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. I hope you're having a fantastic week, and I will see you all on Friday.
Wonder Woman, now the world is ready for